Welcome to my show, simply entitled Women Influencers, where you will find inspirational stories of successful women in business. I am Veronica Malola, CCIM, founder and CEO of the Capstrata Group of companies, providing commercial real estate development, brokerage, and property management services in the greater Orlando area. Today's guest is Michele Richman, Chief People Officer and Lead Coach at Lawline, overseeing HR, legal, and operations. Be sure to listen in on this inspiring conversation. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast. Hi, Michele. How are you today?
Fantastic. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
If you don't mind, I just want to jump right in and ask you about your story, how you grew up in your environment and how you got to where you are today. So please tell us, Michele.
I grew up in Brooklyn and my dad was an attorney. My mom was a teacher and grew up me and my brother in the household. And our family business was essentially, in a way, every part of our life. My dad owned his own law firm, and my mom, while she was a teacher, she graduated college and she wanted to be a producer. Got a job at ABC. She's so excited. And let's say the year is late 60s, early 70s. And unfortunately, she was pretty much told right away, like, as a woman, you will never be able to be a producer. Like, this is just not the career for you. And so she went back, she got her teaching credits and started teaching, and she was a public school teacher. But her dream never died. So in the early to mid 80s, she decided, like, I'm just going to continue to pursue my dream of being a producer in my own way. And like I mentioned, my dad was a practicing personal injury attorney who did a lot of speaking, and they decided to create their own television show that my dad would star in and my mom would produce, and it was called Lawline, which is also the company I work for today. So I'm still a part of it. And
wonderful.
Yeah, so it was like it was something that, it started as a live TV show, and it was their friends were the people who called in, and it was my mom did all of the work. She was, what I say is, literally the woman behind the man. She booked the guests, she wrote all the interviews. When I visited her, she sat in the control room, she was directing the cameras, and she was thrilled. I loved it, and continued to be a public school teacher during the day. And eventually she started doing Lawline and working for my dad with helping him with advertising at the firm full time. So I grew up, let's say, with the family always working together. And my influences were, I really wanted to do something with advocacy and volunteering. So I went into politics when I graduated college. I worked for a Democratic issue advocacy organization called the National Jewish Democratic Council. Loved it. It was one of the 3 best years of my life, I always say. Love my children, but I love being in politics. Worked on the Clinton campaign, everything like that, and decided to go to law school and continue that. When I graduated, I worked for the Department of Housing and Urban Development, prosecuting housing fraud. Now, this was in 2002. And the reason I'm telling you that is because I was before the crisis of 2008, but I was actually flying to California. You're in real estate, you know about this. And we were prosecuting lenders who were doing like fake loans and everything like that. I loved it. It was so exciting. It was so exciting to be a part of it. I loved working for the government. But I got pregnant in 2004. And I was shocked that the government at this time, and I'm pretty sure it's different now, had no maternity policy. And I had only been working a couple of years, and I had very, very little leave. And then I was told in my division, pretty much the women were saying that all of the women who had got pregnant left the division because it was fully litigation and enforcement, and moved to other divisions. And it was shocking for me, very disappointing, because one of the reasons I thought working in the government, it would be conducive to being a working mother. But I ended up, my husband and I lived in DC, and we decided to move back to New York. And this time I came back into the family business. I joined my dad's law firm so that I could have the flexibility to work. And I did that for 6 years, practicing personal injury law. And then 2008, my dad's law firm was retiring, and my brother relaunched Lawline as an online education business. And I joined him, and my brother and I have now been working together would you believe, 18 years running the company,
Wow.
growing.
And is your mom still involved? I mean, I
Uh,
know that she's very active in the production side.
my mom passed away 2 years ago, but
Sorry to hear
until
that.
then, so my dad is still an owner of the company, and but yeah, like everything. Let's just say all of us were very involved for many years, and we it was like her her inspiration, which it's just very much above all of us, and like as a powerful woman, I always think about her when I'm making my decisions. So, but there's a lot of overlap, even in Memorial Day weekend. We're always talking at my family, business and personal at all times, and you get used to it. But I can definitely give a lot of advice on working in family business. So.
Oh wow, that's amazing. I was going to ask you about siblings, and you mentioned you have a brother who's also an attorney.
And
So,
he's the CEO of our company.
oh, right,
So
and it's your dad, you, and your brother who went into law, and then your mother. Oh, thank God that she was able to find her creative side and be able to apply it to the family business. I think that's pretty awesome.
yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you do now in Lawline. A little bit more. I know you've mentioned that already.
Okay, so currently I'm the Chief People Officer at Lawline, and we are a continuing education online business. So we everything we believe in is educating attorneys, but it's also in educating our employees. So I handle everything with professional development for our team. We currently have 30 plus employees and many contractors who support us around the country and actually the world. And we film all our own courses. We have faculty who teach for us. So what I do is my passion now is in coaching, and I coach all of our leadership team. I like handle everything operations, finance, and I'm very lucky to have a fantastic three women who work on my team so that I can work on not just educating lawyers, but educating the team at Lawline, but I now work with law firms doing coaching and leadership development and speaking at conferences. And I just wrote my book, which is called The Stories We Almost Don't Tell.
Well, show us your book. Let me take a
Yeah,
look real
thank
quick.
you. Yeah, I'm very excited. This is everything I've done is about how do I support women, even in my book. So my cover of my book is a woman at my office who is a fantastic woman, very talented. She's actually our customer service manager, and she started a new business where she wanted to be creative, and we're talking all about creativity. And it was a doodle business, and she didn't, she had just launched it, and I said, I'm publishing this book, can you do a doodle of me on my deck writing? Because that's where I did. And she came up with this image, which I just love so much. I love my deck. I love writing on it. And so I was like one of her first contracts, and I was so excited to be able to support her in her journey. And that's what I've tried to do with everything in my book is involve women in my life who I know have so much talent and can help me share my message.
Oh, that's amazing. And when I look back at and think about what you said about leaving your job because they did not have, well, and it was only in 2002, which is what, only, I don't know,
24 years.
24 years ago.
A lot has changed.
A lot has changed, but it's amazing to me how they didn't really have any kind of real supporting programs that helped women in the
Yes.
law business. And that must have been just across the board. Any law firm, I guess, in your industry, that was how it was, and things have changed. So good to know. I didn't
I'm
have
so happy for the next generation of women who are becoming because the well-being, everything's balance and focusing on understanding you can be a very successful practicing attorney and a successful parent and go to the meetings and go to school, and it doesn't have to be all or and ironically I think it was COVID that allowed this because people finally were able to realize like you could work from home, and
yeah.
that opened up so much, especially for my team. So
Wow. And what about the rest of the law industry as far as the ecosystem? Do you coach like paralegals or maybe the ancillary roles within that profession?
So the team members I've been coaching so far are operations people at firms and HR people and those who manage professional development. And what I love about that is it's kind of like a train the trainers because they're the people who are going in and training the lawyers. So I'm both helping them become their best self and also giving
Mhm.
them tools to train the attorneys at their firms.
Wow, that's pretty amazing stuff, Michelle. I love hearing your story. So I'm going to ask you about a challenge
Mhm.
that maybe comes to mind that you overcame and how you did it and how that was impactful to the rest of your life.
I'll start with a story because we both love stories. So one day my son was in middle school and he was trying to find his phone. And so what do you do when your kid's trying to find the phone? You call it. And I find his phone and it doesn't say mom. It doesn't say Michelle Richman. It says productivity woman. And I
Hmm.
turned to him and I was like, What is this?" And he was like, "Oh, I just renamed you in my phone as productivity woman because you're always getting us to be productive and telling us what to do." And I didn't look happy about it. And he said, "Oh, think of it as a superhero." And I paused and I thought of all the superheroes that we know, Wonder Woman or Batman, and thinking productivity woman. And it really made me step back and reflect and realize, like, what was the role I was playing both at work and at home, where I felt like I was the one who always had to be responsible, organized, detail oriented. And I was like, is that what I want to be? And I realized, because of my discomfort, I was proud of my success, but I really wanted to be thought of as like a creative, big thinker leader.
Hmm.
And I knew that it wasn't about what Max, my son, did or how everyone else had described me. It was about how I saw myself. And
Right.
so I was like, what are the steps I need to do? And one thing that I made the decision during the pandemic is, when I was in high school and college, I loved writing. I was always on the school newspapers. I loved writing, creative writing classes. But you go to law school, you start practicing, and then you start working, and you lose your ability to have just time to write. And
Mm.
so I started coaching and journaling, and I realized it was like so cathartic for me. It was so beautiful for me to think and come up with reflections. And I finally had a moment where I said, I'm ready to publish my first piece. And the first piece I wrote was in October 2021, which is, I found out it was International Bat Day. And I knew what I had to write. And I wrote about during the pandemic, 6 months earlier, finding a bat sitting on my then middle school son, because like bats had invaded our house, and finding out that we had to, it was like a comic relief of panic. And we had the bat people come to our house and tell us that they could not collect all the bats because there was a New Jersey law protecting bats until spring. So it was a story that I said, sometimes you have to just live with the bats. And from that moment on, I published it, and I loved being creative and I loved sharing it. I started publishing one story a month every month. And by 5 years later, I had 50 stories. And that's when I decided to make my book. So I think, like, the challenge was how I saw myself and how other people saw me as a non creative person, and making one small change. If I could just publish one piece, and I think that's all you need to do, is try one thing to change your patterns. And that's what I did.
Wow, that's great how you pivoted. Not really pivoted, but you if I could describe that as being able to really come to a realization of this missing piece and knowing that that would probably make your whole life a little bit more um impactful, not just to other people, but to you, right? Yourself.
And,
And that being able to just pursue that despite the fact that you were already, because sometimes I think people get locked into what they do for so long
mhm.
that they know something's missing and yet they can't seem to unlock that. So what a great story that is. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask you now, you're a coach, and so therefore you certainly have a lot of influence on a lot of people. And so I wanted to ask you about influence, since our podcast is about women influencers. If there was one thing that comes to mind that you're most proud of that you had an impact on, what would that be?
Most recently, I ran a leadership empowerment program with chief leaders of HR and operations for law firms. And two women who came to the program were both feeling very unsatisfied at work, but didn't really know what the next step was. And I started the program. It was a 6-week program with a personal values exercise. And the reason I did this is because for me, I talk about like when I started writing and when I started changing, I had always said I wanted to become a speaker, but I never tried it. And my personal value originally was leadership. And I realized I was already leading. So when my personal value is leadership, yes, I believed in it. It didn't make me do anything different.
Mm,
Didn't make me change. And I was, still uncomfortable to apply to speak at a conference. I was uncomfortable to lead, to coach outside of the people I'd already been coaching. So I changed my personal value to courage. And
mm,
then every time I made a decision, I was like, am I being courageous? Is this making me uncomfortable? And if it wasn't the right decision. So I just started this exercise, and both women had this like, I could literally see it across the screen, this epiphany moment where they realized their personal value. One was balance, and the other was enthusiasm, that they weren't living in their jobs. And one of the women actually, they both on their own started interviewing. One woman ended up going to a new firm and has been happier than she's ever been. And she
mm.
really says, like, without me giving her the ability to understand what she wanted and the confidence. And the other woman also got a job offer, but then her company came to her and said, what do you need? And she pretty much went to them with a job that she thought would never, ever be accepted. And they were like, we'll create this job for you. And she
Wow.
got a promotion. She's working part time. She's doing everything she ever dreamed. She's running a team. And now she has a full team supporting her.
Mm,
And it was to see them start at the program and feel so untethered and so unhappy and be in such a great place. It was one of the most fulfilling things of my entire career. So I just love
wow. That
I
that's
felt grateful to be a part of their journey.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I think sometimes we forget
Mhm.
that we have an impact on people that could change lives. I mean, the two examples that you had just shared with me, obviously, somehow rather that changed the trajectory of their lives, and I'm sure that they're happier for it. You're happy for it, and it's just an overall just a great not ending, but at least a continuation of another story. So that's pretty amazing. So let me ask you, if you had one piece of advice that you could give to our audience today, what would that be?
This is the advice, and this is what I've learned is that if you think your story doesn't matter or that you need to wait until you're more ready, don't. Your story matters. Your voice matters now. And the person who needs to hear what you have to say is waiting. And I'll give the explanation of since I started writing, publishing, and wrote my book, how many people have come to me and said, thank you for sharing that story. I saw myself in it.
Mm,
And I feel not alone. And I haven't really talked about what I write about, but I have a son on the autism spectrum. So I write a lot about being a special needs parent. I also dealt a lot when my mom passed away 2 years ago in grief. So I write a lot about grief. I write about being a woman and a working parent.
mm,
And everybody's come to me with their stories. And once they start sharing their stories, they feel better. And I feel better. I'm changed by hearing other people's stories. So I'm
right.
changed by both telling my story being heard, and then them sharing it with me. So I really think we all have a story to tell. And the title of my book, just to wrap it, is like the stories we almost don't tell, finding the courage to tell yours. It's you're telling it for yourself, but for others too, and it feels so empowering.
Yeah, and it's amazing how a lot of us think that we have to be at a perfect stage
Mhm.
before we do something, and we don't, right? We just have to take that one step. And like you said, courage, right? That's so important. It's because sometimes perfect is not really ever going to come
Mhm.
because we are imperfect
Well,
and
my
situations are imperfect.
Sorry, I was just going to say that if you ask my team, what's the one thing I say to them more than anything else? It's perfect is the enemy of good. And if you're always waiting for perfect, you're just never going to be good enough, and we're never going to
Yeah,
finish the
yeah.
project. And I have to say it over and over again, and to myself also. But it's so important to stop.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for that piece of advice. It's really amazing. So I think we've come to the point of our interview where you get to ask me a question, Michelle. So please go ahead.
So I've told you about my journey of switching from my personal value of leadership to my personal value of courage, and how it changed my trajectory. I was wondering if you had to choose one personal value, what would it be and why?
Thank you for the question. I will tell you that for the longest time, I think it was only last year when I had an opportunity to participate in another leadership program. I've been to several of them, but this leadership program actually had a segment where we had to identify our personal values.
Great.
And as I looked through the list, I thought, and this will never change probably, that my number one personal value would be gratefulness or gratitude.
Mhm.
But what I discovered also in the midst of working, or really when I think about what motivates me to do things, it's really my number two personal value, which is curiosity.
Mm.
And I think maybe it was like a couple years ago when I asked my family, and I'm in my 60s, early 60s. And sometimes I think to myself, now why would I do that? I'm already in my 60s. As a matter of fact, some other friend of mine had asked me, why are you doing that? I mean, aren't you like comfortable and safe? And
Mm.
why do you even want to step into something else when you're already good, right? And I really realized it's about curiosity. I'm such a curious person. I love learning. I
Mm.
love venturing into other things, and that allowed me to make really, really great conscious decisions about investing and reinvesting in myself and in the world that I'm not familiar with. Right. So, say for instance, I had an opportunity to, as I got accepted to the Wharton Executive Program, and it's a big
Yeah.
ticket, right? And you're taking 1 week away. You're going to, to UPenn, and you're taking time away from your family and your career. And I thought to myself, why am I doing that? Why do I really want to do that? And of course, it was about curiosity, right? I'm a lifelong learner,
Mhm.
and because of that personal value, it's allowed me to step into other roles that otherwise I would have never thought that I would step into. And of course, courage and boldness and all of that are important. But I would say that because I'm curious, I love to travel. I love to see the world. I love to see things and learn about things that otherwise I would never have come across. And so that to me is really what in the last few years have allowed me to step into things that weren't safe, that necessarily were comfortable. And I just the ability to be able to identify that, I think, is so important. And to your point, right? How many people actually ask themselves what their personal values are?
Mhm.
Not a lot of people actually put thought into that. I didn't for I mean, it was only 2 years ago when I started really articulating what it is that was important to me in my
I,
future.
I love that. And I did see on your LinkedIn, you said you love to travel, and where do you recommend? And so I was thinking right away, have you been to Iceland?
Not yet, but that's on our bucket list.
I
Oh my
got
gosh. Yeah.
one of my favorite trips of my life. You must go. It's fantastic.
Oh no, absolutely. It's on our bucket list. I mean, we went to Alaska. We love that. We've been to Europe several times, and then we went to Banff in Canada.
Love
And
that.
we thought, oh my
Like,
God, this is really amazing how you could go into places where you had absolutely no idea how people live there or what kind of culture and what's out there in the wild. And you just open yourself up to so much that you've never even dreamed. I mean, I'm from the Philippines.
yeah.
And we have beautiful islands here. Everything was tropical, but this is but yes, Iceland for sure. I told my husband and my sister who travels with us, I'd love to go on a cruise and end up in Iceland. As a matter of fact, we have a planned trip to go to Madrid. Madrid is our favorite city in Spain, so we're going to revisit. We have a nephew that lives there, and go to wine country in Bordeaux, and then maybe Porto in Portugal.
Yeah, I've been trying to do more and more, but we will be in Barcelona this summer. So where my whole family is actually meeting there. My
Oh,
whole
that's
family,
so
my
wonderful.
dad. And so yeah, no, we love to travel, and the Canadian Rockies is my second top favorite after Iceland. That I it's the beauty of that place, and
Oh,
love it so
it's
much. So
it just places you in a world, in such a different world, and it removes you from all the noise, and it's like the beauty of everything. I mean, it's just amazing. But thank you for for asking me that question. And before we go, Michelle, you have a book. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about your book, and if somebody in the audience wanted to connect with you, how would they do that?
I wrote a book, which is a book of my essays, and it talks. My first half is about fear and how I overcame it. Then it's about accepting help from friends, from others, from therapy, and then it's about how did I become the person that I am today and the woman I am today. And I tell my journey and my stories. You can find the book at link and everything about me at michellerichman.com or michelle.richman.coach on Instagram. But I just like essentially took 6 years of stories from journaling, told my life story, got an editor, put it together, put some themes, and it's something that my children will always have. And that was my
Oh,
main impetus. But it's now that I've done it, it's just been so rewarding to for people to read it, to reach out to me. I've given it out at conferences and been told that they're quoting my book in coaching sessions, and so
wow.
I'm really grateful for all the
Oh,
success.
congratulations. Show us your book again.
Okay. Thank you. Very
That's
excited.
awesome. And can you buy that on Amazon
Yes.
or?
Yes.
Okay.
You can
And
get
it's
the
out.
Amazon link from michellerichman.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Michelle,
Thank
for
you.
this time that you spent with me. I love your storytelling. You're so inspirational, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you. Appreciate it.